Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be talking about lerping and quadratic Bezier curves. I'm going to be working my way up from just normal linear interpolation, and then I'm going to be talking about quadratic Bezier curves, and then I'll finally finish off with cubic Bezier curves and how they're used. Alrighty, let's just jump straight into the tutorial. So I'm just going to be talking about, again, Bezier curves. So the first thing I actually do want to talk about is just lerping. So what is lerping exactly? Lerping is the process of an object or just a value going in between 2 points at like a constant speed. I'll kind of show you. It's called linear interpolation. So I'm going to represent all these visually because personally I'm more of a visual learner, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two midpoints. So I'm just going to rename this to start, and then actually I'm going to make this a red color just so you could differentiate all the different colors. So I'm going to have a start and finish part. And then I'm going to actually make one more part, and this is actually going to be green. This is going to be the object that is traveling in between these two parts. It's kind of similar to tweening in a way, but I'm actually not going to be using tween service. I'm going to be doing this through a script. So first thing that I want to talk about is that there's a little Lerping formula. So I'm going to write that out real quick. It's nothing too terrible. It's pretty intuitive once you understand it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I have an A value, a B value, and a time value. So the A value is going to be the start position, and the B value is going to be the ending position. That's all you need to know. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take A, which is the starting position, right here. I am going to add the difference between B and A. And remember, these are going to be vector values. These will be vector 3's. So I'm taking the difference between two vectors at a certain point, and I'm going to multiply that by t, and t is the time value. So for example, if t was 0.5, this part will be exactly in between. If t was 0.9, it will be up here. And I'm about to show you how I could use this. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just grab a few of these values from the workspace. So workspace find first child start, and finish. Finish equals workspace find first child finish. I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see this a bit better. I want to start doing that more in my videos. Okay, so now that we have the start and finish, I'm actually going to take the position of both of these. And then the best way to represent this is through a for loop. So I'm going to do for I equals 0, comma 10, and it's going to increment by 1. If you don't quite understand for loops, I recommend finding a video on that because these are really important in coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a time value, and the time value is represented as a percentage. So instead of using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as I'm grabbing the I, I'm going to say local t equals I divided by 10. So this will give me a percentage within like 0 and 100% almost. So if I equals 1, t will return 10%. So that's how I'm going to use my time value, and you'll see that here in a second. So now what I want to do is I am just going to I'm just going to lerp a value. So lerp, I have my function right here. Actually, I'm going to set this value to the lerp. So I actually need to rename this quick. I'm going to rename this travel because it's going to be the moving part. So let me just get that real quick. So I'm going to do travel.position equals a lerp. And then I'm going to again identify the starting and finish positions. Start, comma finish, and finally the time value. So again, it's just going to go and return me this value at a certain time. I'm going to have it waiting 0.1 in between each iteration of the for loop. So now watch what happens. Ready? If I just run the game, this is very basic. This is the most basic form of a lerp, or of a that went very fast, so let me redo that. This is the most basic form. It's just an intro to Bezier curves. So this is what a lerp looks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And whenever I set the value, I'm just kind of naming off I. So again, if the value is 10, I'm dividing 10 by 10, that's 1. 9 divided by 10 is 0.9. So that's the percentage of the way there. So that's just a lerping. That's kind of like some sort of prerequisite knowledge just for Bezier curves. So we can actually use this function to create quadratic and cubic Bezier curves. So you might be asking, what do you actually use Bezier curves for? Well, it's actually used a ton in computer graphics and generating curves because you see, we don't always just use straight lines for everything we do. So if you ever use Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, the pen tool, that's Bezier curves. So they have anchor points, you can move those around. They're very important, pretty much everything you do. So if you're gonna, be a game developer, I'd look into this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start by creating a quadratic Bezier curve. So quadratic, this is where it gets a little bit more, it looks confusing, but I'll explain it and I'll help you visualize it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this red part, and this is an in-between part. You could think of this like an anchor point. So I'm just gonna name this P1. P1 is just, again, it's the in-between point. So now what I'm gonna have it do is I'm gonna have a point lerping in between these 2 points, and I'm also going to have a point lerping in between these 2 points. And I'm also going to have one more lerp, which is going to be going along those 2 lerps. You'll see what I mean in a second. It's a little much to grasp the concept immediately, but you'll see what I'm talking about. So what I'm going to do is I am going to write another for loop. Let me comment this out. So I'm going to write another for loop, and this is going to be my quadratic Bezier curve. By the way, beams in Roblox, they use cubic Bezier curves. So cubic is like, you want to be able to use that, or you want to be able to at least try to understand it. So what I'm going to do is say, I actually need to, so I have P1, let me quickly get that position, equals workspace, find first child, P1 dot position. So now that I have P1, I can start off by doing a few lerps. So L1 just stands for lerp1. Like I said, lerp1 is just an imaginary number going in between these 2 points. So that's what lerp1 is going to do. So again, you can try to guess. I'm going to have start and P1 as my first lerp. Start, comma, P1. So there's my first lerp, and my second lerp is going to be in between these 2 values, or these 2 objects. So I'm going to do L2 equals lerp, and then P1, again P1 is this point, and then finish. So now I have an L1 and L2, and finally, all I need to do now is make the quadratic Bezier curve. So that is going to be a lerp in between those 2 lerps. So it's actually going to move on a curve now. And I keep forgetting to put T here. Let me do that real quick. T. Because remember, these all are going to be traveling along a time. Like the time's a parameter. The only thing we have to do now is P1 dot, actually no, not P1, travel dot position equals, and then quad. So now you can probably see what this, or imagine what this is kind of going to do. Oh, where did my point go? That's kind of funky. 1 second. It's probably Yeah, it's because I didn't put a weight here. It just went right into the last object, and sometimes it doesn't always show. There we go. So as you can see, it doesn't quite hit any of these points. There's 2 points of lerping in between here, and what this point is doing, it's just moving along those 2 lerps. So I'm actually going to start off by helping you visualize even more what it's doing, because again, I'm trying to help you grasp it visually rather than me just talking it through. So I'm going to name point I1. This is going to stand for just it's just an in-between point. It's going to show the, actually I'm going to name it L1 for lerp 1. And then this one is going to be L2. So I'm just going to help you visualize this by showing the other 2 lerps. And I'm going to actually give these 2 a trail. So, I showed it in the intro. A trail will just help you be able to see the path it's going on easier. So we got 2 points. Oop. I'm going to move this here, and then add a trail. Trail needs 2 attachments, so there we go. So now when I move this, we got a little trail, perfect. I'm always going to have it face camera because why not, wherever that property is. I'm just not seeing it. I think there is a property. Oh, it's because I have the object selected, of course. Face camera, there we go. So I'm just going to do the same thing for this point, L1. Let me just duplicate this so I don't have to go through the whole process again. Alright, so now I have 2 lerp objects which will go along the path of the lerp. Equals workspace, find first child, L1, oops. And local L2 equals workspace, find first child, L2. So now all I have to do is set these points position to L1. Actually, that's bad. I don't want to name these the same thing. Lerp1 object, lerp2 object. Okay, lerp1 equals L1. Lerp1 dot position, because these are still objects in the game. Keep that in mind. Equals L2. So now when you run the game, you're going to see a little bit more visually of what's going on. See that? Oh, I need to set the lifetime longer on the paths. That's my bad, sorry guys. So the lifetime is very short, so lifetime, let's make this just 20 seconds, just an arbitrarily large number because why not? And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make more segments, more intervals, so it's smoother. And I'm going to make this 0.01. So now it's going to be moving a lot smoother than it was before. There you go. You see that? Start to finish. They all finish at the same time. Just 2 points of lerping in between. So that's the cubic, okay? Not cubic, sorry, quadratic Bezier curve. And I'm actually just going to make a green path for this one, this object. So let me just get this. So I'm gonna use change my travel object real quick. I have another one here that just has a trail to it. So there we go. Now you can see. Let me run it one more time just for you guys, so you can see the path it's going on. As you can see, it's a nice little curve. It's like, if you ever seen a quadratic function in algebra, like x squared plus 5x plus 6 or whatever, it's like a parabola almost. Kind of similar to that. So what we're going to be doing now is making a cubic Bezier curve. So similar in algebra, if you've ever seen a cubic Bezier curve, it's kind of like, just a cubic function. It's very curvy. You'll see in a second. So what I'm going to do is make yet another point, and I'm going to name this point P2. So we're going to have even more lerps, guys. Very exciting, right? So literally Bezier curves are just revolved around lerps. Keep that in mind. So here's P2, and like I've done with the other points, just gonna initialize it up here. There we go. So we got P2 now. So, oops, this is a very important Bezier curve to know because this is what beams use. So, depending on the path you want an object to travel, you want to know how to do this. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm just going to name this Quadratic and comment it out for now. So now what I want to do is define another lerp. So local L3, and then I'm going to make that equal to lerp of these 2 points. So I'm actually going to have to change these up a little bit. So let me just quickly delete these insides just so I could kind of visualize it myself a little. So we want to go between this point and this point. So that's going to be the first lerp, which is P1 on time. And then we want to go in between this point into this point, P1 and P2. And then again, the time value. And then finally P2 into the finish. So this point into this point. So now we have 3 lerps. And the third lerp means we add another one of these. Just to help you visualize what the paths look like. So local lerp3 equals workspace L3. There we go. So now I could do this lerp3 dot position equals L3. So I have these 3 objects moving along the position of each lerp, and now this is another new thing. So the first lerp, I'm actually going to have 2 lerps going along these lerps. It gets kind of confusing, so just try to imagine it, don't try to memorize it. Memorizing it won't get you anywhere. So I'm going to have this start lerp going from L1 to L2. So it's going to be moving on a curve between L1 and L2. And remember, lerp 1 and lerp 2, they go from start all the way to P2. So it kind of ends back here. And again, you'll see what I mean here. And local finish equals a lerp, and then L2 comma L3 time. And then finally, all we need to do is create the cubic lerp. So we got start, finish, and time. Make this cubic. So let me show you what it looks like first, because it is very interesting. So let's see. I got a little error. That's the first. Sub on nil. Okay, so I must have given it a nil value at some point. Probably right here because I forgot to put in the time parameter like I usually do for some reason. So look at that. 3 lerps going. And there's actually one more lerp I want to show you. So I'm going to, because I added 2 whole new lerps in, oops. Now I got 2 purple objects. These are going to be like the, you know, like the in-between lerps of the lerps. The lerps of the lerps. Why not? Okay, so what I'm going to do is say, get these, yep, I have to get more values. sfin1 equals workspace, find first child, sfin1, sfin2 equals workspace, find first child, sfin2. And then I could just do sfin2 dot position equals start, and sfin2 dot position, sorry, sfin1 equals start, and then this will equal finish. So now you're going to see every single lerp that's going on. Here we go, guys. Moment of truth. Lots of lerps. Be ready. Oh my gosh, look at that. So as you can see, this white object just has a linear interpolation going, just a single one. The purple point, that has a quadratic linear interpolation going on. So there's 2 quadratic linear interpolations going on. And then the cubic, that is lerping amongst the 2 quadratics. So I'm just going to tell you this, quadratic, quadratic, and then this is a lerp, this is also a lerp, and this is a lerp. And finally we got our cubic. So just to get a cubic we need 3 lerps, 2 quadratics, and 1 cubic. Let me run that back one more time for you guys. So just look at it, try to understand. So keep in mind, quadratic is only going to go amongst 3 points. There's the quadratic, and there's the cubic. The green line is a cubic. So those are Bezier curves, guys. That's a very intro to Bezier curves I just gave you. There's so much you can use Bezier curves for. For example, I was able to make a bow and arrow, for example. Like if you want to map the trajectory of the arrow, you would need Bezier curves for that. You'd use a beam object to do that. So just try to visualize it. Don't try to memorize it, okay? So I hope that this helped clarify some things with Bezier curves. And if you guys liked this video, just please drop a like. I'd appreciate it. It always takes time and a lot of motivation to get these videos out, especially with school going on. And it has been a little while since I've posted because I've been very busy. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you all have a great day.